What if the love of your life was hiding a secret so profound it could shatter your entire world? What if, behind the smiles, the Hollywood red carpets, and the glamorous parties, there was a truth so private, so devastating, that even the people closest to you couldn't prepare for it? This is not the story of fairy tale romances or the glossy images we see in magazines. This is the story of Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson, a love story that began with spark and promise, but ended under shadows few could imagine. And today, for the first time, Trevor Engelson is breaking his silence to reveal the real reason behind their divorce, a reason that goes far deeper than headlines ever suggested. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Trevor Engelson, a producer in Hollywood with a name few outside the industry might recognize, found himself caught in a storm that would change his life forever. On the surface, he and Meghan seemed perfect for each other. Both ambitious, young, and talented, they were the kind of couple that Hollywood loves to celebrate. Parties, premieres, late-night dinners, and long walks on California beaches. Their romance seemed to have everything a young couple could dream of. Yet, as the cameras flashed and the world cheered, a private reality was unfolding that would eventually pull them apart. The first question you might ask is, what went wrong? And the answer is complicated, layered, and at times heartbreaking. It's not just about incompatibility, or fame, or even distance. No, the truth involves secrets of the body, the heart, and the pressures that come with ambition in an unforgiving industry. At just 21, Meghan Markle faced a loss so intimate, so personal, that it would leave ripples through every part of her life, and her marriage to Trevor Engelson. The loss of her womb, an event she kept hidden from the public eye, changed the trajectory of her life and ultimately altered the course of their love story forever. Imagine being in a relationship where the person you love the most is silently carrying a pain so deep you cannot touch it, cannot fix it, cannot even fully comprehend it. Now, imagine the added weight of fame, the scrutiny of millions, and the impossible expectations of Hollywood. Every gesture, every glance, every word becomes amplified. Small disagreements turn into monumental battles. And love, no matter how strong, faces pressures it was never meant to endure. Trevor Engelson has remained largely silent about this chapter of his life, until now. And the reason he's speaking is simple. The story has been misrepresented, misinterpreted, and, in many ways, silenced. For years, tabloids and online gossip fueled rumors of ambition, betrayal, and hidden agendas. But what really happened behind closed doors is far more human, far more tragic, and far more revealing than any headline could convey. In the earliest days of their relationship, Meghan and Trevor's chemistry was undeniable. Friends and family remember the way they looked at each other, the way they laughed together, and the way they spoke as if no one else existed. Hollywood's glittering lights could not compete with the glow they shared. And yet, as intimate as their connection was, there were cracks forming from the start, cracks invisible to outsiders, but painfully clear to those living within them. Hollywood is a place of illusions, where appearances often matter more than reality. Trevor, ambitious yet grounded, navigated this world with care. Meghan, confident yet ambitious, also understood the stakes. But even the smartest, most prepared individuals can be blindsided by the most intimate of tragedies. Losing a womb at 21 is not just a medical event. It's an emotional earthquake, reshaping identity, plans, and dreams. It is a silent trauma, one that cannot be measured by the public eye, yet one that leaves a permanent mark on relationships, self-perception, and life decisions. Trevor Engelson witnessed Meghan's struggle firsthand, though he could never fully share it with the world. The heartbreak, the late-night conversations, the quiet tears behind closed doors, these moments never made headlines. But they were real, and they mattered. The emotional weight of this secret played a critical role in shaping the decisions they made, the paths they chose, and ultimately, the path that led them to divorce. Now, years later, Trevor is revealing what has been hidden, the connection between Meghan's private loss and the unraveling of their marriage. He describes the complexities of their love with honesty, unflinching in detail, unafraid to show the vulnerabilities of both himself and Meghan. This is not a story of blame, but of truth, the kind of truth that forces us to confront how little we truly know about even the most public figures. But why is this story emerging now? Timing matters. In recent years, Meghan Markle's life has become a global spectacle, from royal weddings to controversial interviews. Public fascination with her story is at an all-time high. Yet amid the coverage, the foundational chapters of her personal life, particularly her first marriage, have been largely ignored. Trevor Engelson's voice offers clarity, depth, and perspective. It reconnects the public with the person Meghan was before the monarchy, before the tabloids, before the unrelenting public gaze. For the audience, this story raises difficult questions. How much of someone's life can we truly know from the outside? How do private traumas shape public actions? And how do love, ambition, and personal tragedy intersect in ways the world rarely sees? As Trevor shares these insights, viewers are invited into a world of heartbreak, growth, and revelation. A world where even those who appear invincible must confront vulnerability, loss, and decisions that define a lifetime. The introduction of this exposé sets the stage not merely for gossip, but for a human story that resonates beyond Hollywood. It reminds us that fame, money, and public recognition cannot shield anyone from the deepest pains of life. Trevor Engelson's account illuminates these truths, revealing a narrative that is as emotional as it is compelling, as dramatic as it is human. And yet, the story is far from complete. Because behind the heartbreak and private struggles lies a larger question. How did this early loss influence Meghan's life choices? How did it shape her ambitions, her relationships, and the person she became under the unyielding public microscope? These answers are not revealed in a single paragraph, nor in a single headline. They unfold slowly, dramatically, and with unexpected twists, the kind of twists that will keep viewers on edge throughout the entire story. But here's the question that will follow you through this entire exposé. Could love truly survive when one partner carries a secret that changes the very foundation of their dreams? Could trust, intimacy, and connection endure when the weight of grief is silent but unrelenting? And most importantly, how much of Meghan Markle's story has been told accurately, and how much has been obscured by narrative, assumption, or secrecy? This is where Trevor Engelson's voice becomes crucial. He offers insight not as a critic, but as someone who loved, lived, and struggled within this marriage. His perspective is both intimate and revealing, providing a rare window into a life that millions have watched, yet few have understood. As this exposé unfolds, viewers will witness not just the unraveling of a marriage, but the intersection of ambition, secrecy, trauma, and resilience. A narrative as captivating as it is tragic. The introduction closes with a mini cliffhanger. The audience is left wondering what the first cracks were, how the private pain began to leak into public life, and what decisions ultimately led Trevor and Meghan to part ways. In the next chapter, we will dive into the very beginning of their relationship, exploring the Hollywood romance that started it all, and the subtle tensions that would eventually define their love story. What drew Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson together in the first place? Was it fate, coincidence, or something far more magnetic? Picture this: Los Angeles, the city of dreams and heartbreaks, where stars are born, ambitions collide, and the air itself seems charged with possibility. It was here, amidst glimmering parties, coffee dates in quiet cafes, and the constant hum of Hollywood, that Meghan and Trevor's paths crossed. And from the moment their eyes met, something unmistakable sparked between them. A connection that felt at once exhilarating and undeniable. Trevor Engelson was already making a name for himself in Hollywood, a young producer with determination, charisma, and an ability to navigate the labyrinth of the entertainment industry. He wasn't a household name yet, but within the circles that mattered, he had a reputation, smart, witty, and deeply committed to his work. He had ambitions, dreams of producing films that would leave an impact, and a knack for seeing talent before anyone else did. Meghan Markle, meanwhile, was carving her own path. A rising actress with poise and charm, she exuded confidence, intelligence, and the kind of energy that made people take notice. She was talented, ambitious, and aware of the opportunities and challenges that came with being a woman in Hollywood. Their romance began in the most ordinary of ways, through mutual friends and shared industry events. But what started as casual meetings quickly deepened into something more intimate. Friends noticed the way they looked at each other, the way conversations flowed effortlessly, and the way laughter seemed to follow them wherever they went. It was a romance that felt both natural and cinematic, as if the city itself had conspired to bring them together. Hollywood is a city of facades, of careful appearances and relentless scrutiny. Every gesture, every smile, every whisper can be magnified and dissected. Yet, in those early days, Meghan and Trevor seemed to exist in a bubble, impervious to the outside gaze. They went on quiet dinners, took long walks, and shared conversations that lasted until the early hours of the morning. In these moments, they were not public figures. They were just two people discovering each other, learning the rhythms of love, and reveling in the exhilaration of a connection that felt both rare and profound. But even as their love blossomed, there were subtle tensions that would later take on far greater significance. Hollywood relationships are rarely immune to pressure. Ambition can create friction, success can breed insecurity, and the constant scrutiny of others can amplify even the smallest disagreements. Meghan, aware of the public's gaze and her own rising profile, carried herself with grace, but also with an understanding of the complexities she faced. Trevor, protective yet ambitious himself, tried to balance his professional life with the growing demands of a relationship that was both intense and public in its own circles. The couple's chemistry was undeniable. Friends recall moments of sheer joy, quiet jokes in crowded rooms, gentle touches, playful teasing, and shared dreams whispered over coffee or late-night drives. These were the moments that seemed to define their relationship. The private pockets of intimacy amidst the chaos of Hollywood life. And yet, even in these moments of happiness, the seeds of struggle were quietly being sown. It is here that the first hints of challenge emerged. Meghan's private life, even at this early stage, was complicated. While Trevor focused on building his career, Meghan faced pressures both internal and external. The expectations of family, the awareness of her public persona, and the personal struggles that she carried silently. At just 21, she had experienced profound loss and challenges that few could understand. Trevor, despite his love and care, could not fully grasp the depth of her private experiences that would eventually play a critical role in the trajectory of their marriage. What made their romance remarkable was not just the intensity of their connection, but the way they balanced each other. Trevor brought stability, humor, and a grounded perspective. Meghan brought ambition, energy, and a vision of life beyond the ordinary. Together, they navigated the ups and downs of young love in Hollywood, a city where romance often falters under the weight of fame and fortune. And yet, as perfect as it seemed on the surface, their relationship was quietly being tested by forces neither fully understood. There were moments of sheer exhilaration, premieres, award ceremonies, industry parties where they were celebrated as a couple to watch. Friends recall their effortless charm, the way they commanded attention without even trying, and the subtle signs of a deep bond that went beyond appearances. They were partners in every sense, emotionally, socially, and, in many ways, professionally. But even in these moments of public admiration, the cracks began to show. Not in dramatic arguments or visible fights, but in the quiet, almost invisible moments of tension. The subtle sighs, the fleeting expressions of worry, the unspoken concerns that neither wanted to voice. Hollywood relationships are often romanticized, yet the reality is far more complex. Behind the glamour and the headlines lies a world of insecurity, competition, and relentless pressure. For Meghan and Trevor, these pressures were compounded by personal challenges, including Meghan's private experiences with health and identity, and Trevor's own ambitions and expectations. Each carried their own burdens, and while they loved each other deeply, these burdens would eventually test the limits of their bond. One friend who observed the couple during this time shared a telling anecdote. They laughed together like they were the only two people in the room, but sometimes, when Meghan looked away, you could see a flicker of worry in her eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. These small, almost imperceptible signs would later become significant, signaling struggles that would not be visible to the outside world, but which shaped the course of their relationship in profound ways. And yet, despite these challenges, their early romance was intoxicating. Hollywood had a way of glamorizing love stories, but Meghan and Trevor's connection felt real, grounded, and emotionally resonant. They supported each other's dreams, celebrated successes, and navigated setbacks together. They shared secrets, whispered promises, and built memories that, at the time, seemed unbreakable. But love in Hollywood is rarely immune to the past, to hidden truths, or to personal tragedy. While the world saw their romance as a story of possibility and charm, the private reality was far more complex. Meghan's experiences, particularly the loss she endured at a young age, remained a silent shadow over their relationship. Trevor, despite his devotion, could not fully intervene in a pain he did not entirely understand. And this silent tension, this unspoken burden, would later play a critical role in shaping the trajectory of their marriage. As their relationship progressed, the first hints of strain began to appear, not in dramatic confrontations, but in subtle moments. Quiet hesitation, unspoken questions, and the realization that some aspects of Meghan's life were inaccessible to even those closest to her. Trevor, loving and attentive, could sense the depth of her private struggles but could not reach them fully. And in Hollywood, where appearances often outweigh reality, these private tensions were hidden beneath smiles, laughter, and the illusion of perfection. The Hollywood romance of Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson was, in many ways, a story of contrasts: public admiration and private struggle, youthful exuberance and hidden pain, shared dreams and individual burdens. It was a love story that captivated those who witnessed it, yet it was also a story quietly shaped by personal tragedy, ambition, and the pressures of life under constant observation. And so, as their romance continued, the question lingered: how long could love endure when it is tested by secrets too heavy to share, pressures too intense to escape, and the relentless scrutiny of a world eager to watch, judge, and dissect every move? The answers to these questions would begin to reveal themselves in the coming chapters, as the private realities of Meghan's life intersected with the public expectations of Hollywood, and as the young couple faced challenges no one could have predicted. Hollywood has a way of masking reality with glitter. Bright lights, red carpets, and perfectly curated Instagram posts create the illusion of a life without flaws. But behind every smile, behind every glamorous party and carefully posed photo, there exists a private world that the public rarely sees. For Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson, that world was filled with both love and complexity. A combination of shared joy, personal struggle, and hidden pain that would later define the trajectory of their relationship. At first glance, Meghan and Trevor's romance seemed ideal. They were young, ambitious, and in love, navigating the labyrinth of Hollywood hand in hand. Yet beneath the surface, subtle tensions began to emerge. Meghan carried experiences and burdens that she had rarely shared with anyone, including Trevor. These were deeply personal challenges, intimate struggles that shaped her understanding of herself, her relationships, and her life's ambitions. At just 21, she had endured a profound loss, a loss so private, so significant, that it could never be discussed openly without feeling vulnerable. This loss was more than physical. It carried emotional consequences that rippled through her sense of identity, her dreams for the future, and even the way she approached love. While she had cultivated a public image of confidence, charm, and poise, privately, Meghan wrestled with questions that many young adults never face. Questions about identity, womanhood, and the fragility of life itself. Trevor, despite his closeness to her, could only grasp a fraction of the emotional weight she carried. He loved her deeply, but the silence around certain topics created a distance, a barrier that neither of them initially recognized. Hollywood amplifies everything. Small conflicts can feel monumental. Misunderstandings can spiral into larger tensions when compounded by the constant presence of peers, friends, and industry insiders. Meghan and Trevor's relationship was no exception. They laughed together, shared dreams, and built memories. But in private moments, Meghan's internal struggles were always present. She faced pressures not only from her personal experiences, but from an industry that demanded perfection, charm, and relentless resilience. Every decision carried weight. Every misstep could be magnified. Friends who knew the couple during this period remember that Meghan often appeared composed, but there was a quiet intensity beneath the surface. She was driven, intelligent, and deeply aware of her surroundings. She understood the optics of every interaction, the implications of every word, and the subtle judgments that Hollywood could impose. Trevor, though astute, approached life with a more grounded perspective. He was determined, focused on his career, and deeply committed to Meghan, but he did not fully comprehend the emotional layers she navigated daily. This imbalance, subtle though it was, became one of the undercurrents of their relationship, a silent force that would later influence decisions and outcomes in ways neither anticipated. Even in the early stages, Meghan's private world was marked by contradictions. Outwardly, she was vibrant, confident, and socially adept. She exuded warmth and charm, and those around her were drawn to her charisma. Yet inwardly, she grappled with deeply personal emotions. Loss, identity questions, and the uncertainty of young adulthood compounded by a major personal trauma. This duality shaped how she interacted with Trevor and how she navigated the early stages of their marriage. It was a complexity few could recognize, yet it influenced every choice she made, every conversation she engaged in, and every private moment she shared with Trevor. Trevor, on his part, faced his own set of challenges. While he was deeply committed to the relationship, his professional ambitions often required focus, long hours, and travel. Hollywood relationships demand constant negotiation between personal commitment and career development, and Trevor had to balance his own aspirations with the needs of a partner whose private struggles were profound yet unspoken. Their love was strong, yet it was tested continuously by forces both visible and invisible. The couple's social circle, filled with Hollywood insiders, offered a mix of support and subtle pressure. Friends celebrated their romance, noting their chemistry, humor, and shared goals. They attended premieres, industry parties, and intimate gatherings, presenting a united front to the public. But in private, the pressures of expectation were unrelenting. Meghan's personal loss remained a topic too sensitive to discuss openly, even with the man she loved. The silence surrounding it created tension. Not out of mistrust, but out of the natural human difficulty of navigating grief and trauma in a world that constantly demands performance, composure, and positivity. Hollywood's glare can also distort perception. For Meghan, every choice was observed, judged, and interpreted. The public saw ambition, confidence, and a growing profile in film and television. Few, however, understood the private layers. The quiet moments of reflection, the personal struggles with identity, and the emotional processing of a life-altering event that had occurred years earlier. Trevor, while aware of some of these pressures, could not fully engage with the private depth of Meghan's experience. Their relationship, though strong in many ways, was shaped not only by love, but by these silent dynamics. Despite these complexities, Meghan and Trevor built a life together. They shared experiences that bonded them deeply. Trips to the countryside to escape Hollywood's intensity, long conversations about their dreams and fears, and playful moments that reminded them of the joy that first drew them together. Their connection was palpable, and in many ways, it seemed as though their love could withstand any challenge. Yet the seeds of tension planted by unspoken grief and the pressures of public life were quietly taking root, shaping the path their relationship would follow. Friends recall moments that now seem telling in hindsight. Meghan would sometimes withdraw briefly, her mind heavy with thoughts she could not voice. Trevor, sensing this, would offer comfort, support, and space, but could never fully bridge the gap between visible behavior and invisible pain. These small, often subtle moments were the undercurrent of a story that would later unfold in unexpected ways. Hollywood romances are often romanticized in ways that obscure reality. They are measured by appearances, media coverage, and social validation, not by the private challenges, the unspoken grief, or the emotional labor that goes into sustaining love. Meghan and Trevor's relationship was no exception. To outsiders, it appeared effortless, enviable, and perfect. To those living it, it was a delicate balance of joy, challenge, and emotional negotiation. The early days of their romance were also marked by moments of profound intimacy and vulnerability. Trevor, in particular, was attentive to Meghan's emotional state, aware that beneath her charm and composure lay experiences that shaped her deeply. He became a confidant, a partner, and in many ways, a stabilizing force in her life. Their love was real, palpable, and meaningful, but it was also navigating uncharted waters, carrying invisible weights that would later define their journey. And so, the stage was set for the events that would follow. The public saw the laughter, the charm, and the shared moments of joy. The private reality was far more complex. Meghan's personal loss, the pressures of ambition, and the emotional landscape of young love in Hollywood were all quietly shaping their story. These were the secrets behind the glamour, the hidden layers that few would ever perceive, yet which played a pivotal role in the unfolding drama. As Trevor Engelson now reveals, understanding this early period is crucial to comprehending the eventual unraveling of their marriage. The foundations were strong in some ways, but fragile in others, built on love, but shadowed by private struggles and unspoken challenges. And while the romance was intoxicating, the pressures, secrecy, and silent grief created a tension that would eventually demand resolution. What came next, the decisions, the misunderstandings, and the pivotal moments, would ultimately change everything for Meghan and Trevor. But those events, shrouded in both secrecy and the pressures of public life, are only revealed in the chapters that follow. The romance that began with such promise was quietly, inexorably moving toward a turning point no one anticipated. And just as in any compelling story, the audience is left wondering, how did love this strong begin to crack? How do private struggles silently infiltrate even the most passionate of relationships? And what was the catalyst that would take Meghan and Trevor from promise and passion to heartbreak and separation? What does it feel like to believe you've found the person you want to spend your life with? For Trevor Engelson and Meghan Markle, that moment was charged with both anticipation and exhilaration, a feeling that everything in their lives had led to this one pivotal event. Hollywood romances are often painted as fleeting, superficial, and scandal-driven. But their story, up to this point, had something different: depth, laughter, intimacy, and a shared vision of a future together. The proposal was the public acknowledgement of that private bond, the moment when whispered promises became a tangible, undeniable commitment. Trevor, thoughtful and deliberate, planned the proposal with care. It wasn't about spectacle or grandeur, though both would inevitably follow. It was about creating a moment that reflected their connection. Friends who knew them recall that he wanted the proposal to feel intimate, personal, and deeply meaningful. He chose a setting that spoke to their shared memories, a quiet, private location where the noise of Hollywood would not intrude, where they could exist entirely in their own bubble. It was a gesture that encapsulated both the depth of his feelings and his understanding of Meghan's need for privacy. For Meghan, the moment was electric yet tender. She had spent her early 20s navigating a demanding career, personal challenges, and a world that constantly demanded perfection. In Trevor's proposal, she found not just a promise of love, but a sanctuary, a rare space where her heart could breathe, unburdened by expectation. Friends later remarked on the glow in her eyes, the way she laughed, and the unmistakable warmth of her embrace. This was more than a Hollywood romance. It was a convergence of hearts that, at that moment, seemed unstoppable. But beneath the joy and excitement, subtle tensions lingered, invisible to the naked eye. Meghan's private struggles, the silent grief of a loss she had endured years earlier, remained unspoken. Trevor loved her deeply, but the shadow of her past experiences created a quiet tension, a complexity neither could fully articulate. These undercurrents would later prove pivotal, reminding us that even the most joyous events in life can be accompanied by hidden layers of emotion and uncertainty. The engagement was announced discreetly at first, shared with close friends and family before making its way into the public domain. Unlike many Hollywood proposals, which are broadcast for maximum attention and acclaim. Theirs was measured, carefully curated, and reflective of their personal bond. They wanted to celebrate without transforming an intimate moment into a media spectacle. Yet, inevitably, Hollywood's gaze is relentless. The news spread quickly, headlines emerged, and the public fascination began. Trevor and Meghan had embarked on a journey that would now be watched, dissected, and scrutinized at every turn. Planning the wedding brought its own set of challenges. As a couple, they balanced the excitement of planning a life together with the realities of careers in an industry that never sleeps. Locations were considered, guest lists debated, and the vision for the ceremony refined. Meghan, aware of the world's fascination with her, was meticulous in every decision, ensuring that the event reflected her personal style and their shared values, rather than simply catering to Hollywood expectation. Trevor, supportive yet pragmatic, focused on creating a meaningful experience that honored both their love and their families. Friends who observed the planning process remember the energy surrounding them, excitement tempered with meticulous care. Every detail, from the flowers to the music, was discussed with care. The engagement ring, a symbol of commitment, was chosen with thoughtfulness, reflecting not just wealth or status, but the depth of sentiment between them. There was laughter, late-night planning sessions, and moments of reflection as they imagined a future together. In these moments, the couple felt invincible, as though no challenge could disrupt the bond they had forged. And yet, even amid joy, Hollywood's influence loomed. Friends cautioned them about public perception, gossip, and the pressures of fame. The scrutiny could be suffocating, but Trevor and Meghan were determined to prioritize their love over public opinion. They navigated the delicate balance of celebrating a personal milestone while remaining aware that the world would inevitably watch and comment. This tension, subtle though it was, would continue to shape the narrative of their relationship. The wedding itself was a reflection of both intimacy and celebration. Though modest by Hollywood standards, it was a deeply meaningful affair. Close friends and family gathered to witness a union grounded in love, shared experiences, and hope for the future. Meghan's elegance, combined with Trevor's thoughtful preparation, created a ceremony that was both visually stunning and emotionally resonant. The day was filled with laughter, tears of joy, and moments that would be remembered for a lifetime. But even as they celebrated publicly, the private realities of their lives could not be ignored. Meghan's personal history, particularly the loss she endured, continued to influence her emotions and decisions. Trevor, devoted and compassionate, offered support, understanding, and care, but he could not fully erase the impact of experiences that predated their relationship. These private elements, invisible to the public, shaped the undercurrents of their marriage, adding layers of complexity that would later become crucial in understanding their eventual separation. After the wedding, the couple entered the early stages of married life with optimism. They shared dreams, planned for the future, and navigated the initial adjustments that all young couples face. There was excitement in building a life together, deciding where to live, balancing work schedules, and dreaming of shared adventures. Yet, the private emotional terrain that Meghan navigated continued to exist beneath the surface, quietly influencing the rhythm of their marriage. Friends later noted the subtle ways in which Meghan's experiences impacted the relationship. She approached life with intensity and mindfulness, yet there were moments of hesitation, reflection, and quiet contemplation that revealed the depth of her private struggle. Trevor's role as a supportive partner was vital, but even love and devotion could not fully shield them from the challenges that lay ahead. Their engagement and wedding, while joyous, were thus both a celebration and a foreshadowing. They marked the beginning of a new chapter, yet they also illuminated the silent forces that would later test their bond. The public saw a beautiful union. The private reality was far more complex, a mixture of love, hope, private grief, and the pressures of life in a city that watches everything. The engagement and wedding encapsulated a powerful truth about relationships, particularly those in the public eye. Joy and struggle often coexist, and the most intimate realities can remain invisible to the outside world. For Trevor and Meghan, the wedding was both a culmination of their romance and the starting point of challenges that would eventually reveal the fragility beneath even the strongest connections. And as the honeymoon phase ended and the realities of married life began to unfold, subtle tensions became more apparent. Small disagreements, unspoken emotions, and private struggles that had previously been manageable now started to influence daily life. The love between them remained strong, but the unseen weight of Meghan's past experiences, combined with the demands of Hollywood life, created pressure points that would eventually become critical in the story of their separation. The audience is left wondering, how did a seemingly perfect Hollywood romance, culminating in a dream wedding, begin to face fractures? How do private struggles and silent grief infiltrate even the happiest moments of life? And what were the first signs that this marriage, celebrated by friends and family, might not withstand the pressures quietly building beneath the surface? What if the foundation of your future, the dreams you held closest to your heart, was suddenly taken from you? For Meghan Markle, this was not a hypothetical question. It was a reality she faced at just 21, a reality so profound that it would silently shape her life, her ambitions, and her relationship with Trevor Engelson. The moment was private, intimate, and devastating, one that neither Hollywood's glare nor Trevor's love could fully illuminate or ease. This revelation was not something that could be shared casually or announced publicly. It was intensely personal, a physical and emotional loss that affected Meghan's understanding of herself, her body, and her dreams of motherhood. Few people outside her inner circle were aware of it, and even Trevor, despite his closeness to her, only gradually understood the depth of her experience. For a young woman, navigating not only her career but the pressures of public perception, the loss carried layers of grief, identity conflict, and emotional weight that would linger for years. Trevor, devoted and loving, was there as much as he could be. Friends describe his support as unwavering. Late-night conversations, quiet encouragement, and gestures meant to reassure Meghan that she was not alone. Yet, no matter how empathetic or attentive a partner can be, some losses are solitary in nature. There is no script, no guidebook, and no simple way to navigate the combination of grief, personal identity, and intimate trauma. Trevor's challenge was compounded by his love for Meghan and his desire to protect her from pain, while also respecting the private nature of what she had endured. Hollywood, meanwhile, does not pause for private grief. The city moves relentlessly, celebrating success, amplifying beauty, and scrutinizing personal lives. For Meghan, the pressure to appear composed, confident, and ambitious was ever present. She had already begun building her career, navigating auditions, media attention, and the subtle politics of the industry. To reveal such a deeply personal struggle publicly was not only unimaginable, but potentially career-altering. Thus, the loss remained a silent force, present, powerful, yet hidden from the world's view. Trevor's perspective offers a unique lens on this period. As someone who loved Meghan and witnessed her vulnerability, he observed the ways in which this loss shaped her interactions, her emotional landscape, and her relationship with him. Friends recall instances where Meghan would withdraw, not out of disinterest or disengagement, but because of the emotional weight she carried privately. Trevor's empathy was immense, yet the silence surrounding the loss created moments of tension, not because of conflict, but because of the natural human challenge of bridging the gap between visible love and invisible pain. The impact of losing her womb at such a young age cannot be overstated. It was not merely a medical event. It was an existential one, reshaping the narrative of her life, her dreams, and her expectations for the future. For Meghan, the loss affected how she viewed relationships, personal identity, and her ability to plan a life in the conventional ways society often prescribes. For Trevor, it meant navigating a marriage where joy, love, and desire were intertwined with silent grief and complex emotional realities. The couple's early days of marriage, following the proposal and wedding, were thus framed by a paradox: intense love paired with unspoken challenges. Friends describe moments of profound connection, late-night discussions, shared laughter, intimate support that existed alongside moments of withdrawal, hesitation, and quiet reflection. The contrast between public celebration and private struggle was stark, yet it became a defining feature of their union. What makes this revelation even more compelling is the timing. At 21, Meghan was in the midst of her career ascent, building a public persona and navigating an industry known for its ruthlessness. Balancing ambition, fame, and personal grief created a pressure cooker of emotion, expectation, and resilience. Trevor, for his part, was both participant and observer. He celebrated her successes, empathized with her struggles, and tried to anchor their relationship amidst turbulence they could not fully control. The secrecy surrounding the loss added another layer of complexity. Meghan had to manage public appearances, career expectations, and personal grief simultaneously. Friends recall her moments of quiet reflection, the way she would sometimes look away, lost in thought, carrying a weight that could not be shared publicly. These private moments, juxtaposed against the public image of a confident, ambitious actress, created a tension that Trevor and Meghan navigated with care, love, and, at times, uncertainty. Trevor Engelson's account sheds light on the emotional choreography required to sustain love amidst such private tragedy. His patience, compassion, and attentiveness became crucial in maintaining their bond. Yet even the deepest love cannot erase the impact of a life-altering loss. The couple's story illustrates a fundamental truth about relationships. Love exists alongside pain, but pain shapes love in ways that are often invisible to the outside observer. Friends and colleagues who were close to Meghan at the time noticed subtle signs. Moments of introspection, a certain guardedness in conversation, and an emotional depth that sometimes contrasted sharply with her public persona. These moments were clues to the profound internal experience she was navigating, one that would quietly influence the trajectory of her relationship with Trevor and shape her personal narrative for years to come. Hollywood, by its nature, thrives on appearances. Yet the reality of Meghan's experience exposes the contrast between the world's perception and personal truth. Trevor, immersed in this environment alongside her, had to balance the expectations of friends, colleagues, and the public with the private demands of supporting a partner through a deeply personal struggle. It was a delicate, emotionally charged dance, requiring empathy, patience, and resilience. Qualities that Trevor demonstrated in abundance, even when faced with challenges beyond his control. The ramifications of this revelation extended beyond personal grief. It influenced the way Meghan approached intimacy, communication, and decision-making within their marriage. It informed her expectations, shaped her emotional responses, and contributed to the subtle tensions that would later play a pivotal role in their separation. Trevor's perspective highlights the intersection of love and trauma, how two people, deeply connected, can navigate joy and grief simultaneously, and how unspoken struggles can quietly influence even the most passionate relationships. For the audience, this chapter raises profound questions. How does one sustain love in the face of private tragedy? How does grief, silently carried, shape the dynamics of a relationship? And how do personal experiences, hidden from the public eye, influence the choices that define a life? Trevor's account provides insight into these questions, revealing a dimension of their marriage that was both intimate and transformative. Yet, even with this revelation, the couple's bond was not broken. Love, after all, is resilient. Trevor and Meghan continued to build a life together, navigating daily routines, career obligations, and shared experiences. There were moments of laughter, joy, and connection that reminded them, and everyone around them, why their relationship had begun with such intensity. The difference was that now, every interaction, every decision, carried the quiet weight of unspoken grief, adding complexity to what might have otherwise been a straightforward love story. Friends recount the subtle ways Trevor supported Meghan during this period. Late-night drives to clear the mind, quiet conversations about hopes and fears, and patient listening that allowed Meghan to process emotions without judgment. These moments were not dramatic or headline-worthy, but they were essential. They illustrate the depth of care required to sustain a relationship when one partner carries a private, life-altering experience. And yet, the tension between private reality and public expectation remained ever present. Hollywood did not pause for grief. nor did it provide space for silent struggle. Meghan's career continued to progress. Her public profile grew, and the pressures of visibility intensified. Trevor, supportive yet navigating his own career demands, had to find a balance between professional obligations, public appearances, and the private needs of a partner navigating a profound personal loss. This is where the story takes a critical turn. The loss Meghan endured, and the way it was silently integrated into her marriage, set the stage for the challenges, misunderstandings, and emotional struggles that would later culminate in the dissolution of their union. It was a force that shaped the rhythm of their daily life, influenced communication patterns, and quietly informed the decisions they would make as a couple. And so, the audience is left with a question. How does a relationship survive when its foundation includes both profound love and profound loss? How do partners navigate intimacy when grief is silent but ever present? And what happens when the pressures of public life intersect with the hidden complexities of private experience? Love, even at its strongest, is never immune to strain. For Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson, the challenges began quietly, almost imperceptibly, threading themselves through the fabric of their marriage. On the surface, they were the perfect Hollywood couple, admired by friends, respected in their industry, and publicly radiant. But beneath the glamorous facade lay a different reality, one marked by subtle tension, unspoken struggles, and emotional complexity that no one outside their inner circle could fully perceive. Early in their marriage, Meghan continued to navigate the emotional aftermath of the loss she had endured at 21. It was a silent weight, not always visible, but ever present, influencing her moods, decisions, and interactions. Trevor, devoted and patient, recognized the challenges but could not entirely bridge the divide between her private experience and the public expectations of their lives. He tried in countless ways, through conversation, support, and quiet understanding. But some struggles, he realized, could only be carried by Meghan herself. Friends close to the couple noticed the first signs of strain in everyday interactions. Small disagreements that would have previously been insignificant began to escalate subtly. A forgotten detail in planning, a delayed call, or a minor miscommunication sometimes sparked moments of tension that, while brief, hinted at deeper currents beneath the surface. These were not conflicts born of malice or anger, but of the emotional weight that both partners carried, compounded by the pressures of maintaining a public image and pursuing demanding careers. Hollywood's relentless pace only intensified these struggles. For Meghan, auditions, public appearances, and the constant scrutiny of media added layers of stress to an already emotionally charged marriage. Every decision she made, every move she executed, was filtered through a lens of expectation, both internal and external. Trevor, though supportive, had his own career ambitions to manage, creating a delicate balancing act between personal devotion and professional responsibility. The tension was real, yet invisible to most observers. The silence surrounding Meghan's private loss created another challenge. It was not a lack of trust or love. Rather, it was the nature of grief itself. Some experiences are so intimate, so personal, that they cannot be fully shared, even with the people closest to us. Trevor's role was complex, to provide love, patience, and understanding, while respecting boundaries that Meghan herself could not fully articulate. This dynamic, while rooted in care, introduced subtle friction into the marriage, manifesting in moments of emotional distance, hesitation, or misinterpretation. Friends recall moments when Meghan appeared withdrawn, not from lack of affection or interest, but from the mental and emotional processing of experiences that were deeply private. Trevor, perceptive and empathetic, would respond with reassurance, sometimes gently, sometimes with humor, attempting to lighten the tension without diminishing her reality. These moments exemplified the intricate emotional dance required to maintain connection amidst silent struggle, a dance that was as delicate as it was necessary. The challenges of silent struggle were compounded by external pressures. Hollywood thrives on visibility, gossip, and speculation. Even minor missteps can be magnified into public controversies. Meghan and Trevor navigated these pressures as a team, presenting unity in public while managing a private world that demanded empathy, patience, and emotional resilience. Their love was strong, but even love has limits when tested by secrecy, grief, and relentless external expectation. Communication became both a tool and a challenge. Trevor's attempts to engage in open dialogue were sometimes met with Meghan's hesitation, an understandable response to vulnerability, grief, and the fear of exposure. Friends noted the careful, deliberate way the couple navigated conversations, a constant negotiation between expressing needs and maintaining privacy, between seeking support and protecting emotional space. This tension, though invisible to outsiders, was a defining feature of their married life. Small frustrations occasionally surfaced in moments of heightened stress. A delayed response, a misaligned schedule, or a seemingly minor disagreement could carry disproportionate emotional weight. But these moments were not signs of faltering love. They were reflections of the broader context, a young couple balancing personal grief, public pressure, and the demands of an unpredictable industry. Trevor's patience and Meghan's resilience kept these tensions from overwhelming them, at least temporarily, as they sought ways to support each other and navigate the complexities of daily life. Friends recall specific instances that illustrate the strain. During one trip for work, Meghan faced an emotionally charged decision involving her career, while Trevor simultaneously grappled with production deadlines. In the private confines of their hotel room, a seemingly trivial disagreement escalated into an emotional conversation, revealing the intersection of professional stress and private vulnerability. Yet, even in moments of conflict, there was an underlying current of love, empathy, and mutual respect, proof that their relationship, though tested, remained deeply rooted in connection. One of the most significant challenges in this period was the tension between public expectation and private reality. Meghan's growing profile brought admiration and opportunity, but also scrutiny. Every choice she made was analyzed, dissected, and judged by industry insiders and media outlets. Trevor, equally conscious of reputation and image, sought to support her while also navigating his own career. This dynamic created a constant push and pull, where private struggles intersected with professional demands, and love was tested by the weight of expectation. Despite these challenges, there were moments of triumph and intimacy. Quiet nights at home, shared laughter, and private jokes offered relief from external pressures. Friends recount scenes of tenderness. Trevor surprising Meghan with thoughtful gestures, Meghan confiding in Trevor in moments of emotional vulnerability, and both finding solace in the companionship that had initially drawn them together. These moments reinforced the foundation of their love, proving that even amidst struggle, connection could endure. Yet, the undercurrents of struggle were never far from the surface. Meghan's grief, though managed with resilience, remained a silent influence on the marriage. Trevor's support, while steadfast, could not erase the impact of a deeply personal loss. Together, they faced the reality that love alone, no matter how intense, cannot always resolve the invisible challenges that shape a relationship. This chapter in their life underscores a profound truth. Relationships are rarely linear, and even the most devoted love is shaped by the weight of unspoken struggle. Meghan and Trevor's marriage, while filled with joy, laughter, and shared dreams, was also defined by complexity, emotional labor, and the silent negotiation of grief. The public may see a beautiful union, but the private reality is layered, intricate, and deeply human. As the audience follows their journey, the question becomes, how much strain can a relationship endure before the weight of silence begins to erode connection? How do couples navigate love when unspoken grief and external pressure coexist alongside passion and commitment? And how do private experiences, hidden from view, shape the trajectory of a life together? The answers, as Trevor Engelson's account reveals, begin to surface in the coming chapters, moments where the silent struggles of their marriage start to manifest in tangible ways, challenging their bond and testing the resilience of their love. The story of their struggles in silence is not just about grief, but about the delicate balance between intimacy, support, and the pressures of a world that rarely pauses to understand the full depth of human experience. And as these challenges accumulated, subtle signs emerged that even the strongest love could be tested in unexpected ways. The audience is left wondering, how will Meghan and Trevor navigate the intersection of private grief, professional pressure, and the demands of a public life? Can love withstand the weight of unspoken struggle, or will the invisible cracks widen into something irreparable? How do two people, deeply in love, slowly drift apart without either fully realizing it? For Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson, the answer lay in the subtle accumulation of stress, unspoken grief, and the relentless demands of Hollywood life. What had once been effortless connection, the laughter, intimacy, and shared dreams, began to feel strained, fragile, and, at times, impossible to maintain. The distance did not appear overnight. It crept in quietly, almost imperceptibly, threading its way into conversations, routines, and shared moments, until it became an undeniable presence in their marriage. At first, the distance was subtle. Small delays in responses, brief silences after emotionally charged conversations, and quiet moments of withdrawal seemed insignificant on their own. Friends often observed Meghan lost in thought or Trevor staring at his phone, and it would have been easy to dismiss these behaviors as normal married life. Yet, when viewed collectively, these small moments painted a different picture. A marriage in which unspoken emotions, unresolved grief, and external pressures were quietly building barriers between two people who had once felt inseparable. The demands of Hollywood careers compounded the problem. Meghan was navigating an industry that demanded constant visibility, professionalism, and resilience, while Trevor was focused on producing, networking, and advancing his own career goals. Both were ambitious, both were dedicated, and both were striving to succeed in highly competitive environments. In theory, this shared ambition should have brought them closer, but in practice, it created competing priorities, long hours, and unintentional neglect. Time that could have been spent nurturing intimacy was instead consumed by work, leaving emotional gaps that slowly widened. The private grief Meghan carried, the profound loss she had endured at 21, also continued to shape her behavior and emotional availability. Even though she had cultivated strength and composure, certain triggers, reminders, and stresses could bring the weight of that experience back to the surface. Trevor, loving and supportive as he was, could not fully shield her from these moments, nor could he completely bridge the gap between visible affection and invisible pain. Their bond remained strong, but the distance began to accumulate silently, like water slowly seeping into cracks in a foundation. Friends close to the couple recount that the first noticeable signs of strain appeared in subtle interactions. During conversations about mundane topics, Meghan might respond with a brief, distracted answer, or Trevor might offer suggestions or reassurances that went unacknowledged. These small lapses, while minor individually, became recurring patterns that neither could ignore. They were not conflicts in the traditional sense, but symptoms of the emotional distance forming between them. Social events, once a source of shared joy, began to expose the growing gap. Public appearances, industry gatherings, and private parties highlighted differences in energy, focus, and engagement. Meghan, ever conscious of public perception, maintained a polished, composed exterior, but insiders noticed moments of fatigue, hesitation, and detachment. Trevor, attempting to balance his professional responsibilities with his support for Meghan, sometimes appeared frustrated or disconnected. The result was a subtle misalignment in both public and private spheres, a growing awareness that the effortless connection of earlier years was becoming more complicated to sustain. Communication, always a crucial component in relationships, became increasingly fraught. Meghan's silence around her grief, coupled with Trevor's desire to protect and support her, created a delicate tension. Attempts to engage in deeper conversations were sometimes met with hesitation, withdrawal, or emotional guard. Friends describe moments when Trevor would gently probe, offering care and empathy, only to meet a wall of silence that left him unsure how to proceed. These moments, though small, reinforced the growing distance, an invisible chasm that both partners recognized yet struggled to bridge. Even everyday routines revealed the widening gap. Shared meals, leisure activities, and conversations about the future, once sources of joy and bonding, sometimes became arenas for subtle frustration or misalignment. The couple's laughter persisted, but it was punctuated by silence. The physical closeness remained, but the emotional intimacy, what had once felt effortless and natural, required more effort, more negotiation, and, increasingly, more compromise. Friends noticed the impact of these dynamics on Meghan. Her drive, ambition, and need for professional fulfillment sometimes clashed with the emotional labor required in maintaining intimacy within the marriage. Trevor, committed to both their relationship and his career, faced similar tensions. The result was a delicate balance that could be maintained for a time, but which required constant vigilance and emotional energy. Fatigue, small misunderstandings, and external pressures eroded that energy gradually, creating distance that neither partner could fully ignore. The growing distance also manifested in differences in future planning. Conversations about long-term goals, family, and life priorities, which had once been a source of alignment, sometimes revealed diverging perspectives. Meghan's private grief and personal priorities influenced her approach to family and career planning, while Trevor's ambitions and expectations added a different dimension. These differences, though subtle, were significant in shaping the evolving emotional landscape of their marriage. Friends recall a particular instance that highlighted this tension. The couple attended a close friend's Hollywood party, where social interactions required a high degree of energy and performance. Meghan, engaged in conversations with industry professionals, occasionally appeared distant or distracted, reflecting the mental and emotional weight she carried privately. Trevor, balancing the need to network and maintain appearances, noticed the emotional gaps and attempted to re-establish connection. The night ended with quiet reflection rather than shared excitement, a microcosm of the growing distance that permeated their relationship. The emotional tension also affected trust, not in terms of fidelity or commitment, but in the subtler sense of confidence and mutual understanding. Trevor, despite his empathy, could not fully access the depth of Meghan's private grief. Meghan, despite her love for Trevor, could not completely share the weight she carried without feeling vulnerable or exposed. This dynamic created an invisible barrier, one that made everyday communication more challenging and intimacy